The stone floors of the palace were always cold, even in summer. I'd learned to move silently across them, my worn shoes making no sound as I carried fresh linens through corridors that smelled of beeswax and old wood. 5 years I'd worked here, invisible among the staff, just another pale-haired girl in a gray uniform who kept her eyes down, and her thoughts quieter still. The other maids whispered that I was cursed with bad luck. Maybe they were right. I'd arrived at the palace gates at 16, alone and desperate after my pack had... I still couldn't think about it without my chest tightening. They'd called me defective, broken. A wolf who couldn't shift properly was worse than human in their eyes, and they'd made sure I knew it before they cast me out. So I'd learned to be small, to fold myself into corners and hallways where no one really looked. The palace was good for that, so vast, so full of important people with important things to worry about. No one noticed the maids except to bark orders or complain about dust. Especially not him. King Demon Ashford was a storm contained in human shape. I'd seen him only from a distance, usually striding through halls with his inner circle trailing behind like dark satellites. He was young for a king, barely 30, but he wore authority like a second skin. His presence made the air feel thinner, sharper. Even the oldest nobles stepped aside when he passed. I'd perfected the art of becoming furniture when he was near, eyes down, breathing shallow, every instinct screaming to make myself smaller. It wasn't just respect. It was survival. Alphas like him didn't see people like me. We existed in different worlds, and I preferred it that way. The annual summit changed everything. For 3 days each summer, the palace filled with visiting packs and their leaders. The preparation was chaos, extra security, endless cleaning, the kitchen staff working until dawn. We were told to stay invisible, to serve silently, to never make eye contact with the guests. "They're not like our king," the head housekeeper warned us, her lined face grave. "Some of these alphas are old-fashioned. Traditional, they see servants as prey. Keep your heads down and don't go anywhere alone." I felt the change in atmosphere the moment the first guests arrived. The air grew heavier, charged with competing dominance. Testosterone and power leaked from every corner. The palace, usually cold and formal, became something more dangerous, predatory. I kept to my routines, cleaning rooms, changing sheets, disappearing, but I felt eyes following me sometimes. Tracking movement where before there'd been only indifference. It made my skin crawl. The second evening, I was refilling wine decanters in the western gallery when I heard voices approaching. Male, multiple. The kind of laughter that had edges. I should have left immediately, but the gallery only had one entrance and they were blocking it. "Well, what do we have here?" The voice was smooth, almost pleasant. But underneath ran something else, something that made my wolf, quiet and damaged as she was, press against my ribs in warning. I turned slowly, keeping my eyes lowered. 3 men stood in the doorway. The one who'd spoken was tall, dark-haired, wearing clothes that screamed wealth and power. An alpha. I could feel it radiating off him like heat. "Just finishing, my lord," I said softly, setting down the decanter with careful hands. "I'll be out of your way. No rush." He moved closer, and I caught his scent. Pine and something sharper, not unpleasant but foreign. "I don't think we've met. I'm Alpha Christoph Rains, from the Northern Territories." I recognized the name. One of the most powerful visiting alphas, ruler of lands that bordered the kingdom. Rich, influential, dangerous. "I'm no one, my lord. Just a maid." I took a small step toward the door, but he shifted, blocking the path without seeming to. "Modest." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I like that. What's your name, modest maid?" My mouth felt dry. "Elena, my lord. Elena." He said it slowly, tasting it. "Pretty. You're very pretty, Elena. Has anyone told you that?" The other 2 men had spread out, forming a loose semicircle. Not threatening, not yet. But the positioning was deliberate, predatory. "I really should go," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I have duties. I'm sure they can wait." Christoph took another step forward. "It's rare to find someone so delicate working in a place like this. You seem too fine-boned for hard labor." He reached out, and I flinched before I could stop myself. His hand froze midair, then continued its path to touch a strand of my pale hair that had escaped my braid. His fingers lingered, tucking it behind my ear with a gentleness that somehow felt more threatening than aggression. "Soft," he murmured. like silk. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was trapped. These were guests, important guests. If I offended them, I'd lose my position. And this job was all I had, the thin line between survival and sleeping in the streets again. "Thank you, my lord," I whispered. "But I really must." "Must what?" His thumb traced my jawline, tilting my face up. I kept my eyes averted, but I could feel his gaze on my skin like physical weight. "Look at me, Elena." It wasn't a request. Slowly, reluctantly, I raised my eyes. His were gray, calculating, with a predator's patience. He smiled. "There. That's better. You have unusual eyes, almost violet in this light." His hand moved to my shoulder, thumb stroking the collar of my uniform. "Tell me, does the king know he has such treasures hiding in his staff?" "I'm not—" My voice cracked. "Please, my lord, this isn't appropriate." "Isn't it?" He leaned closer, invading my space entirely. "You're unclaimed. I can smell it. No pack, no bond. That means you're free territory, little one." "I belong to myself," I said, with more courage than I felt. He laughed. Spirited. "I like that too." His hand slid down my arm, fingers encircling my wrist, not painful, but firm, a display of control. "You do well in my territory. I could use someone with your qualities. What do you say? Would you like to see the north? I have a position here." My pulse hammered against his fingers. "I'm content." He tested the word. "That's a sad ambition, Elena. I'm offering you more than content. I'm offering you—" "She's offering you nothing." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Christoph's hand released my wrist immediately, his whole body going rigid. The two men behind him straightened, eyes wide, and I couldn't breathe. King Demon stood in the doorway, and he was fury given form. His dark eyes weren't just angry, they were molten, barely contained violence swimming in depths that promised destruction. He looked at Christoph the way a wolf looks at a threat to its territory, which made no sense. I was nothing, no one. "Your Majesty," Christoph said smoothly, recovering his composure with practiced ease. "I was just getting acquainted with your staff. Lovely girl. Very helpful." Was she? It wasn't a question. Demon's gaze hadn't left Christoph, hadn't even flickered to me. But I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing, assessing, cataloging, noting every detail. "And did this acquaintance require you to touch what isn't yours?" The air grew thicker. Christoph's smile tightened. "I wasn't aware she belonged to anyone." "She belongs to herself," Demon said, echoing my own words with devastating precision. "And she belongs in my household, under my protection, which you've just violated. I meant no offense." Christoph raised his hands in a gesture of peace, but his eyes had gone cold, merely admiring, "Get out." 2 words. Quiet. Absolute. Christoph's jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he might argue, might push back against the barely veiled command, but whatever he saw in Demon's face made him think better of it. "Of course, Your Majesty. My apologies for any misunderstanding." He inclined his head in a mockery of respect, then swept past Demon with his companions following. As he passed, he murmured something too low for me to hear, but Demon's hands curled into fists. Then we were alone. The silence stretched, pulled taut. I stood frozen, uncertain, my wrist still tingling where Christoph had held it. Demon remained in the doorway, his back to me now, shoulders rigid beneath his black jacket. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I managed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause—" "Are you hurt?" His voice was different now, rough, strained. "No, I'm fine. He didn't—" "Don't lie to me." He turned, and the look on his face stole my words. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something rawer, haunted. "I could smell your fear from 3 corridors away." I blinked. I didn't know that was possible. It shouldn't be." He moved closer, each step deliberate, giving me time to retreat if I wanted. I couldn't. His eyes searched mine with an intensity that should have frightened me but didn't. "How long have you worked here, Elena?" He knew my name. The king knew my name. 5 years, Your Majesty." Something flickered across his face. Disbelief. Maybe frustration. 5 years. And I never... He stopped, jaw working. "You keep yourself very hidden. It seemed safer, Your Majesty." "From me?" The question caught me off guard. There was something vulnerable in it, something almost hurt. From everyone, I said softly. I don't belong in places like this. Not really. I learned early that invisible was better than noticed. He studied me for a long moment, and I couldn't read what I saw in those dark eyes. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out, giving me every chance to pull away, and gently took my wrist. The same wrist Kristoff had grabbed. His touch was different, careful, almost reverent. His thumb brushed over where the other alpha's fingers had been, and warmth flooded my skin. From now on, he said quietly, you are noticed. By me. That means protected. Do you understand? I should have said yes. Should have thanked him and fled. Instead, I heard myself ask, why? His hand was still on my wrist, warm and impossibly gentle for someone who radiated such raw power. The question hung between us, why? And I watched something shift behind his eyes. Conflict, confusion. Like he was asking himself the same thing. I don't know, he finally said. And the honesty in those 3 words made my breath catch. His thumb traced one more circle over my pulse point before he released me, stepping back to restore proper distance. But I meant what I said. You're under my protection now. If anyone, guest or otherwise, makes you uncomfortable, you report it immediately. To whom, Your Majesty? The practicality of it struck me. I couldn't exactly walk up to the king whenever I felt nervous. Something almost like a smile ghosted across his face. To Captain Soren. He handles security. I'll inform him tonight. He paused, studying me with that unnerving intensity again. You're dismissed, Elena, and stay away from the northern wing while the summit continues. Rains and his men are housed there. I curtsied, awkwardly, unpracticed, and fled. My hands didn't stop shaking until I reached the servants' quarters. The small room I shared with 3 other maids was empty, the others still working. I sat on my narrow bed, pressing my palms against my knees, trying to process what had just happened. The king had defended me, had touched me with a tenderness that made my damaged wolf stir in ways I'd thought impossible, had looked at me like I was something precious when I'd spent 5 years perfecting the art of being nothing. It terrified me. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw 2 different hands on my wrist. One claiming, one protecting, and couldn't understand why my body responded so differently to each. The next morning brought new complications. I was in the kitchen before dawn, helping prepare breakfast trays for the guest rooms, when Captain Soren found me. He was a massive man, scarred and serious, the king's right hand in all matters of security. I'd seen him from a distance, but never spoken to him directly. Elena? His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone so intimidating. Yes, sir. I straightened, wiping flour from my hands. The king asked me to speak with you. He gestured toward the hallway. Privately, if you don't mind. The other kitchen staff watched with poorly concealed curiosity as I followed him into a small office off the main corridor. He closed the door and turned to face me, his expression unreadable. His Majesty informed me of last night's incident, he said. I want you to know that Alpha Reigns has been warned. Officially. He won't bother you again. Relief flooded through me. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Thank the king. Soren crossed his arms. I've served him for 8 years, Elena. I've never seen him react to anything the way he reacted when he caught Reigns' scent on you. It was unprecedented. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not telling you this to frighten you, he continued, but you should understand that you have his attention now. That's not a small thing. It means you're safer than you've ever been in this palace. It also means you'll be watched. Noticed. Are you prepared for that? I don't think I have a choice, sir. You always have a choice. His expression softened slightly. But for what it's worth, I think he means well. He's a good man. A better king than most. He doesn't abuse his power. I never thought he did. Good. Soren opened the door. If you need anything at all, find me. The king's orders are my orders, and he's ordered me to ensure your safety. That's a duty I take seriously. I returned to the kitchen in a daze. The other maids immediately descended. What did Captain Soren want? Marina, the youngest, asked eagerly. Was it about last night? Petra, older and sharper, studied me with knowing eyes. We heard one of the visiting alphas got into trouble. It was nothing, I said, reaching for a tray. Just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that had the king himself intervening? Petra's eyebrow rose. There are rumors, Elena. People are talking. They're saying he nearly challenged Reigns to combat right there in the gallery. My hands froze. That's not... We shouldn't spread gossip. It's not gossip when half the palace guard witnessed it, Marina said breathlessly. They say the king's never been that angry. That his eyes went full wolf and everything. Over a maid. The way she said it, over a maid, made something twist in my chest, like it was impossible, absurd. And maybe it was. Get back to work, the head cook barked. All of you. We've got 200 guests to feed and you're standing around gossiping like old women. We scattered, but I felt their eyes on me for the rest of the morning. Curious, speculative, some envious, others worried. By lunch, the whole staff knew some version of what had happened. The stories grew with each telling. By dinner, I'd heard whispers that I was the king's secret lover, that I'd seduced Alpha Reigns deliberately to make the king jealous, that I was some kind of spy planted by a rival pack. None of it was true. But truth mattered less than story when people wanted drama. I kept my head down and worked. What else could I do? The summit's final day arrived with unexpected fanfare. A grand ball was announced, all visiting alphas and their entourages invited, along with the kingdom's noble families. The palace transformed into something magical. Crystal chandeliers blazed with candlelight, floors polished to mirrors, flowers arranged in cascading displays that filled the air with perfume. The staff worked frantically. I was assigned to the ballroom itself, ensuring drinks remained full and plates replenished. It meant being visible, being among the crowd, but there was no way to refuse without raising questions. I dressed in my best uniform, still gray, still plain, but clean and pressed. Braided my pale hair severely back, made myself as unremarkable as possible. It didn't work. The moment I entered the ballroom carrying a tray of champagne glasses, I felt the weight of attention, not from everyone. The nobles barely glanced at serving staff, but from specific eyes, specific presences. Alpha Reigns stood near the western windows, surrounded by his pack members. He watched me with a small, cold smile. Not threatening, not overtly, but remembering, noting. I avoided that section of the room entirely. The ball was beautiful in a distant way, like watching a play from backstage, ladies in silk gowns that cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. Men in formal dress, every inch of them radiating power and confidence. Music swelled from a full orchestra, couples spinning across the floor in perfect synchronization. And through it all, King Demon held court. He stood on a raised dais at the room's far end, dressed in black, that made him look like a piece of night itself, dangerous, untouchable. A line of petitioners and well-wishers snaked before him, each waiting their turn to speak with the kingdom's ruler. I tried not to look, tried to focus on my duties, offering drinks, clearing plates, staying invisible. But my traitorous eyes kept drifting back to him. He never smiled, barely spoke, but commanded absolute attention simply by existing. Elena. I turned to find Captain Soren beside me, somehow moving silently despite his size. Sir? The king wants you to take a break. There's a servant's balcony on the 3rd floor. Go up, get some air. You look pale. I'm fine. That wasn't a suggestion, but his tone was kind. Go. Rest. Come back in an hour. I didn't argue. The servant's balcony was a narrow stone ledge overlooking the gardens, accessible only through a hidden stairwell. It was where staff came to catch their breath during long events, away from the pressure of noble eyes. I leaned against the railing, letting the cool night air wash over me. The sounds of the ball drifted up. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. Below, the garden stretched dark and peaceful, illuminated by scattered lanterns. Running away, I spun. Alpha Reigns stepped from the shadows of the stairwell, and my heart dropped. The servants' areas are restricted to guests, my lord, I said, keeping my voice steady. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, apparently. He moved closer, casual, unhurried. Though I suppose you're used to hiding. It's what prey does best. I'm not prey. My wolf stirred, defensive despite her brokenness. Aren't you? He was close enough now that I could smell pine again, mixed with wine. You run. You hide. You make yourself small. That's prey behavior, little Elena. And it calls to predators whether you mean it to or not. I edged sideways, trying to keep distance between us. The king warned you. The king isn't here. His smile was razor sharp, and I'm not doing anything wrong. Just having a conversation. You can't begrudge me that, surely. This conversation is over. I moved toward the stairs, but he shifted, blocking the path. I don't think so. His voice dropped, losing its veneer of civility. You cost me face, girl. Do you understand that? The king humiliated me in front of my own men because of you. Because you couldn't handle a little harmless flirting. That wasn't flirting. It was whatever I say it was. He took another step. And now you're going to apologize. Fear spiked through me, sharp and cold. The balcony was isolated, the music too loud for anyone to hear if I screamed. We were alone. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I didn't mean to cause problems, please. Just let me pass. Not good enough. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. You need to understand your place, Elena. You're nothing. A broken little wolf playing at being human. The only reason King Demon defended you was pride. He couldn't let a guest challenge his authority. But he doesn't actually care about you. Nobody does. So you're going to... Remove your hand. Now. Demon's voice cut through the night like a blade. Rains released me immediately, but didn't retreat. The king stood in the stairwell entrance, and this time there was no restraint in his fury. His eyes had indeed gone wolf, burning gold in the darkness, fixed on Rains with predatory focus. You were warned, Demon said softly, dangerously, explicitly. This is a public space. This is my kingdom. The king descended the steps slowly. Each movement controlled violence. Every stone, every breath of air, every person within these walls answers to me. Including you, especially you. I was merely threatening a member of my household. Demon positioned himself between us, and the protectiveness of it made something in my chest ache. Cornering her in an isolated location. Putting your hands on her after being directly ordered not to. Do you think I'm a fool, Rains? I think you're being irrational. Rains's voice hardened. Over a servant. A broken one at that. It's beneath you. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. What's beneath me? Demon said. Each word precisely enunciated is allowing trash like you to abuse those under my protection. You have 1 hour to gather your people and leave my kingdom. If you're still here at dawn, I will consider it an act of war. Do I make myself clear? Rains's face went through several shades of red. You would risk a political incident. I would risk far more than that. Demon's smile was all teeth. Test me. Please. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Rains straightened his jacket with jerky movements. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, Demon replied. It is. Rains left, his footsteps angry on the stone stairs. The silence he left behind felt deafening. I realized I was shaking. Demon turned to Elena, and the gold in his eyes faded back to human darkness. Did he hurt you? No. You came before. My voice broke. How did you know I was here? I always know where you are. He said it simply, matter-of-factly, then seemed to realize how that sounded. That is, Soren informed me when you left the ballroom. I wanted to ensure you were safe. You should be at the ball, hosting. I should be wherever I'm needed. He stepped closer, and I caught his scent, cedar, and something wild, storm-touched. And right now, you're trembling. I'm fine. Stop saying that. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently cupped my face. The touch was electric. You're not fine. You haven't been fine since the moment you arrived at this palace, have you? You've just gotten very good at pretending. Tears burned my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. Your Majesty, I don't understand what's happening. Why any of this matters to you. I'm nobody. Nothing. Just like he said. He's wrong. Demon's thumb brushed my cheekbone, and if you believe him, then I've failed you even more than I thought. Failed me? You don't even know me. I know you're brave, he said quietly, standing up to Rains both times instead of submitting. I know you're loyal. 5 years serving without complaint, without recognition. I know you're hurting in ways you won't speak about. And I know that for 3 days, since the moment I caught another alpha's scent on your skin, I haven't been able to think about anything else." My breath stopped. "That's insane," I whispered. "Yes," he agreed. "It is, but it's also true." The ball continued without us. We stood on that narrow servant's balcony, the king's hand still cradling my face, and the world felt like it had tilted sideways. Everything I'd understood about my place, my purpose, my careful invisibility, all of it crumbled under the weight of his confession. "I should go," I said. Though I made no move to step away. "People will notice you're gone. Let them." His thumb traced my jaw with devastating gentleness. "Elena, I need you to understand something. What I feel, this pull toward you, it's not something I chose. It's not rational or convenient or even wanted, but it's real. You're a king." My voice sounded small. "I'm a maid, a broken wolf who can't even shift properly. This doesn't make sense. When have you tried to shift?" The question caught me off guard. His eyes searched mine with sudden intensity. "Recently, I mean. In a safe environment, without fear or judgment." I looked away. "It doesn't matter. My pack said—" "Your former pack," he interrupted firmly, clearly didn't understand what they had. Or they were threatened by it. Threatened? By me. A bitter laugh escaped. "I'm the weakest wolf I know. Weakness and strength aren't always what they seem." He finally dropped his hand, but didn't step back. "Will you trust me with something? Your history. What happened before you came here?" It was the last thing I wanted to talk about. But something in his expression, open, patient, genuinely interested, made the words spill out. "I was born into the Clearwater Pack," I said quietly. "Small, rural. My parents died when I was young, a rogue attack. The pack raised me, but I was always different. Too small, too quiet, too pale. When other wolves started shifting at 13, 14, I couldn't. They said I was late, then delayed, then defective. How old were you when you finally shifted?" 16. But it was wrong. The memory still made my chest tight. Incomplete. I could feel my wolf, sense her, but the transformation wouldn't complete. It was excruciating. They said I was broken, that my weakness endangered the pack. "So they exiled you." His voice had gone cold. "They gave me a choice. Leave voluntarily, or be formally rejected in front of everyone." I left. I wrapped my arms around myself. Walked for 2 days until I reached the capital. Found work here, and I've been grateful for it, Your Majesty. This place saved my life. By letting you hide. He moved to the railing, staring out at the gardens. By giving you walls to disappear behind. What else should I have done? Lived. He turned back to me. Actually lived, instead of just surviving. You're 21 now, Elena. 5 years you've spent making yourself invisible, accepting the judgment of people who never deserved you. Don't you want more? Wanting doesn't change reality. It's the first step. He held out his hand. Come with me. I stared at his outstretched palm. Where? Somewhere you can stop hiding, even if just for tonight. I should have refused. Should have remembered my place, my position, the impossibility of everything happening. Instead, I took his hand. He led me through hidden passages I'd never known existed, servants' corridors that connected the palace in ways the public spaces didn't. We emerged in what appeared to be a private study, all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with ancient books. My personal quarters, Demon explained, releasing my hand to light candles. No one comes here without permission. We won't be disturbed. The intimacy of that statement should have frightened me. Instead, I felt safer than I had in days. Why are you doing this? I asked. Really, not just the protection, but this. Bringing me here. Telling me these things. He was quiet for a long moment, his back to me as he stared at a painting on the wall. A forest scene. Wild and untamed. 8 years ago, he finally said. I became king at 22, too young, most said. My father died suddenly, and I inherited a kingdom in turmoil. I spent every waking moment since then building stability, creating alliances, proving myself worthy of the crown. And in that process, I forgot what it felt like to want something just for myself. He turned to face me. Then you walked into that gallery 3 nights ago, and something in me recognized something in you. I can't explain it better than that. But I know that when Rains touched you, I wanted to tear him apart. When you flinched, I felt it in my own skin. And when you asked me why I cared, I realized I've been asking myself the same question. The only answer I have is because I do. Completely. Irrationally. But undeniably. My throat felt tight. I don't know how to respond to that. You don't have to. Not tonight. He moved to a cabinet, pulling out 2 glasses and a bottle of amber liquid. Tonight, I just want you to feel safe, to not be invisible, to exist as yourself, without fear or judgment. Can you do that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He poured 2 small measures and handed me one. This is from the Northern Highlands, not Rains's territory, he added with a slight smile. Different north, better wolves. The liquor burned pleasantly, warming me from inside. We sat in comfortable chairs before an unlit fireplace, and for a while, neither of us spoke. It should have been awkward, a king and a maid, alone in his private study. Instead, it felt strangely natural. Tell me something about yourself, I said eventually. Something not everyone knows. He considered. I hate being king sometimes, not the responsibility. I'll carry that until I die, but the isolation. Everyone wants something from you when you're king. Loyalty comes with expectations. Friendship becomes politics. Even my inner circle, Soren, my advisors, they see the crown first, the man second. If at all, that sounds lonely. It is. He swirled the liquor in his glass. But loneliness is part of the position. You accept it. You shouldn't have to. His eyes met mine, and something passed between us, understanding maybe, recognition of shared wounds. Your turn, he said. Tell me something true. Not about your past, about now. What do you want, Elena? If you could have anything, that's not fair. Wanting impossible things is just torture. Humor me. I looked down at my glass, watching the candlelight refract through the liquid. I want to not be afraid all the time. I want to wake up without that knot in my chest, wondering if today's the day someone finally sees through my act and realizes I don't belong. I hesitated, then pushed forward. I want to know what it feels like to be chosen. Not tolerated, not pitied. Actually chosen. When I looked up, his expression had softened into something that made my heart stumble. You're already chosen, he said quietly. You just don't know it yet. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, books we'd read, places we'd dreamed of visiting, small childhood memories that felt safe to share. He told me about learning to rule while grieving his father, about the weight of decisions that affected thousands. I told him about the small kindnesses that had kept me going, the cook who always saved me extra bread, the guard who whistled warnings when nobility approached. Slowly, without meaning to, I relaxed. Let my shoulders drop. Let myself laugh at his dry observations about various pompous nobles. Let myself just be. It's almost dawn, Demon said eventually, glancing toward windows that showed the sky lightening to gray. You should get some rest before your shift. Reality crashed back. I stood quickly, suddenly aware of how long I'd been here, how improper it all was. Your Majesty, thank you. For tonight. For everything. But we can't. I know. He stood as well, but made no move to touch me. The world we live in has rules, expectations. I'm not naive enough to ignore them. But Elena... He paused, choosing words carefully. This isn't over. Whatever this is between us, it's not going away just because it's inconvenient. It has to. You're a king. You'll marry someone appropriate, someone who can stand beside you without causing scandal. And I'll keep serving. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked, he corrected. Doesn't mean it's how it should work. He walked me back through the hidden passages, stopping before a doorway that opened near the servants' quarters. His hand lingered on the door handle. Be careful today, he said. Rains will be gone, but his influence remains. There will be people who resent what happened, who see you as a threat to the established order. I'm not a threat to anyone. You're a threat to everyone who wants to keep me isolated and controllable. His smile was slight, but real. Trust me on that. The door opened, and I slipped through into familiar corridors. But as I walked back to my room, I felt different. changed. Like something that had been sleeping inside me for 5 years had finally opened one eye. The fallout started immediately. By noon, everyone knew Alpha Reigns had been expelled from the kingdom. The visiting Alphas departed earlier than planned, citing diplomatic concerns. The nobles whispered about the king's overreaction, about inappropriate attachments, about what it meant for the kingdom's alliances. And every single whisper centered on me. The other maids treated me differently now. Some with envy, others with fear. Marina avoided me entirely. Petra watched with calculating eyes, like I'd become a puzzle she needed to solve. "You should be careful," she said finally, cornering me in the linen closet. "The king's attention is a dangerous thing for someone like you. I didn't ask for it. Doesn't matter. You have it now. And there are people, powerful people, who won't like what that implies." She leaned closer. "Lady Isadora, for one. She's been positioned as the likely queen consort for 2 years. Suddenly that's threatened because the king's interested in a servant girl. Do you understand what that means?" I did. And it terrified me. Lady Isadora Thornfield was everything a queen should be. Noble-born, educated, beautiful, connected to half the powerful families in the kingdom. I'd served at dinners where she sat beside the king, watched her charm nobles and visiting dignitaries with practiced ease. She was perfect for him. I was nothing but a complication. "I'm not trying to threaten anyone," I said quietly. "I'm just doing my job." "Then keep doing it. Head down, mouth shut. Let this blow over." Petra's expression softened slightly. "I don't wish you ill, Elena, but you're playing a game you don't understand with people who've been at it since birth. You can't win." She left me there, surrounded by folded sheets and the smell of lavender, and I knew she was right. I couldn't win. But I also couldn't make myself regret last night. Those hours of feeling seen, valued, chosen, even if it was temporary, even if it was impossible, even if it destroyed me. 3 days later, everything changed again. I was cleaning one of the guest rooms, now vacant after the summit's premature end, when Captain Soren found me. "Elena, the king requests your presence." My stomach dropped. Now? Now? His expression was unreadable. "Follow me." He led me through the palace to a part I'd rarely entered, the formal administrative wing where the king conducted official business. We stopped before an ornate door, and Soren knocked twice. "Enter," Demon's voice called. The room was vast, dominated by a massive desk covered in documents, but it wasn't empty. 5 people stood around the desk. Demon, his chief advisor Lord Garrett, Captain Soren, and 2 women I recognized immediately. Lady Isadora Thornfield, elegant in deep blue silk, her dark hair perfectly arranged, and beside her, someone I'd hoped never to see again. Helena, former beta of the Clearwater Pack, the woman who'd led the vote to exile me. My blood turned to ice. "Elena," Demon said, his tone formal and controlled. "Thank you for coming. We have matters to discuss, about your past and your future." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Helena stood there in formal traveling clothes, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp as knives. She looked exactly as I remembered. Tall, powerful, every inch the beta female who'd delivered my exile with cold efficiency. "Your Majesty," I managed, forcing my voice to work. "I don't understand." "Sit." Demon gestured to a chair positioned directly across from his desk. Not quite an interrogation, but formal enough to make my pulse hammer. I sat, folding my hands in my lap to hide their trembling. Lord Garrett, an older man with silver hair and calculating eyes, spoke first. "Miss Elena, we've received some interesting information regarding your history with the Clearwater Pack. Information that contradicts what we understood about your circumstances." My eyes darted to Helena. She watched me with an expression I couldn't read. 3 days ago, Demon said, his voice carefully controlled. "After Alpha Reigns' expulsion, I ordered a full investigation into your background. Standard procedure for anyone who becomes," he paused, choosing words, "connected to the crown in any capacity. What we discovered was enlightening." "I never lied about my past," I said quickly. "I told you what happened. You told me what you believed happened." He leaned forward. "But belief and truth aren't always the same thing. Helena, if you would." The former beta stepped forward, and I pressed back in my chair instinctively. She noticed, and something that might have been regret flickered across her face. "Elena," she said quietly. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear, but you deserve the truth. We all do. She took a breath. You weren't exiled from Clearwater Pack because you were defective. You were exiled because our alpha feared you. The words made no sense. I couldn't shift properly. Everyone saw what Malcolm wanted them to see. Helena's jaw tightened. Our former alpha was a traditional wolf. Old-fashioned. He believed in strict hierarchies, absolute control. When you started showing signs of being an Omega, he panicked. The room tilted. What? An Omega wolf, Lord Garrett interjected, consulting notes, is exceptionally rare. Perhaps 1 in 10,000 wolves carries the trait. They're characterized by an unusual ability to sense and influence emotional states, to calm aggression, to serve as natural mediators. They're also, he glanced at Demon, known to form uniquely powerful bonds with alpha wolves. That's not possible. My voice sounded distant. Omegas are myths, stories. They're rare enough to seem mythical, Demon said, but real, and threatening to someone like Malcolm, who ruled through fear and dominance. An Omega in his pack would undermine his control simply by existing. Helena nodded. When you couldn't complete your shift at 16, it wasn't because you were broken. It was because your wolf was different. Omega wolves shift later, and differently. Their transformation is tied to emotional safety, not just physical maturity. Malcolm realized what you were before you did. He saw the way other wolves responded to you, even in human form. How they calmed around you, trusted you. He couldn't have that, so he convinced everyone I was defective. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Made me believe it myself. Yes, Helena's voice roughened, and I helped him. I led the vote. I delivered your exile. I believed I was protecting the pack from weakness. I was young, ambitious, loyal to my alpha above all else. I didn't question. I should have. Why are you telling me this now? I looked between them. Why does any of this matter? Because Malcolm is dead, Helena said bluntly. Killed 3 months ago by a rival pack. I'm alpha now, and one of my first acts was reviewing his private records. I found documents, Elena, notes about you, about what you really were, about how he deliberately traumatized you during your shift attempts, used his alpha command to prevent your transformation from completing. He broke you on purpose. Rage flooded through me, hot and sudden. My hands clenched into fists. He tortured me, made me think I was worthless. And you all just believed him? Yes. Helena didn't flinch from the accusation. We did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right. Starting with this. I'm formally offering you reinstatement to Clearwater Pack with full honors. Your exile is nullified. You're welcome home, Elena, not as a broken wolf, but as what you truly are. I don't have a home. The words came out harsh. You made sure of that 5 years ago. Which is why this is your choice. Demon's voice cut through, commanding attention. Helena came here 3 days ago at my summons. I wanted answers about your past. What I got was much more. Now you need to decide what to do with this information. Lady Isadora, who'd been silent throughout, finally spoke. Her voice was cultured, precise. If I may, Your Majesty, this situation has implications beyond the personal. An Omega wolf connected to the crown would shift political dynamics considerably, particularly if that Omega were bonded to the king. The room went silent. Bonded? I looked at Demon. What is she talking about? His expression was carefully neutral, but his hands had tightened on the desk edge. Omega and Alpha wolves can form pair bonds stronger than typical mate bonds. They're rare, powerful, and, according to historical records, virtually unbreakable once completed. The bond provides stability to the Alpha and protection to the Omega. It's symbiotic. And you think I couldn't finish the sentence. I think, he said carefully, that what I felt when Rains touched you wasn't just protectiveness. What I felt when we spent that night talking wasn't just attraction. The pull between us isn't random, Elena. It's recognition. My wolf knows yours, even if we don't fully understand it yet. Lady Isadora's smile was thin. How convenient. The king discovers a mythical Omega mate just as marriage negotiations reach their conclusion. Forgive my skepticism, Your Majesty, but this seems remarkably well-timed. Careful, Isadora. Demon's voice dropped dangerously low. I'm being practical. She turned to me, and her eyes weren't cruel, just calculating. Do you love him, girl? Truly? Or are you simply overwhelmed by attention from someone powerful after years of being nothing? The question hit like a slap, because I didn't know the answer. My throat closed. I don't know what I feel. This is all happening too fast. A week ago, I was invisible. Now I'm apparently some rare wolf type, being offered pack reinstatement, told I might be bonded to the king, and everyone's staring at me like I'm a puzzle to solve or a threat to eliminate. I stood abruptly, chair scraping. May I be excused, Your Majesty? Demon's jaw worked. Elena, please, my voice broke. To process, I need time to think. This is too much. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Go. But Elena, we will talk about this. Soon. I fled. I didn't return to the servants' quarters. Instead, I found myself in the palace gardens, in a secluded corner where roses grew wild against old stone walls. I sank onto a bench and finally let myself fall apart. Everything I'd believed about myself was a lie. The defectiveness, the brokenness, the fundamental wrongness I'd carried for 5 years, none of it was real. I'd been deliberately damaged by someone who feared what I represented. And now I was supposed to just, what? Accept it? Transform into this Omega wolf I'd never known existed? Bond with a king because our wolves supposedly recognized each other? It was insane. You ran. Marina's voice made me jump. She stood at the garden entrance, arms crossed. Everyone's talking about it, about how you were summoned to the king's office and came out looking like you'd seen a ghost. I don't want to talk about it. Too bad. She sat beside me, uninvited. Because I'm tired of watching you suffer. You've been kind to me since I started here, Elena. Patient when I made mistakes. You never talked down to me like the others, so I'm going to be honest with you now, even if you don't want to hear it. I waited. The king cares about you. Everyone can see it. The way he looks at you, like you're the only real thing in a palace full of masks, that's rare. Maybe impossible. And you're terrified of it because you've never believed you deserved good things. You don't understand. I understand better than you think. Her voice softened. I came here at 15, orphaned, alone. I spent 2 years believing I was nothing but a burden, that I should be grateful for scraps. Then one day, the head cook told me I had real talent for pastries. Suddenly, I had purpose, value. It didn't make sense. I was still the same person, but having someone see my worth changed everything. She turned to face me fully. The king sees your worth. Maybe you're this Omega thing, maybe you're not. But he sees you, Elena. Actually sees you. Are you really going to run from that because it's scary? It's not just scary. It's impossible. I gestured helplessly. Look at me. Look at him. Even if the bond thing is real, I don't know how to be what he needs. I'm a maid. I clean floors. I don't know politics or diplomacy or how to navigate noble society. Lady Isadora is right. I'm overwhelmed by attention from someone powerful. How do I know what I feel is real? How does anyone know? Marina shrugged. You trust yourself. You take the risk. You let yourself want something and deal with the consequences. And if it falls apart, if I'm wrong, if I let myself believe this is real and it destroys me, then you survive. Like you survived exile. Like you survived 5 years of hiding. She stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. But at least you'll have lived first. Really lived. That has to count for something. She left me there, and I stared at the roses until the sun began to set. Demon found me as darkness fell. I heard his footsteps on the garden path and knew without looking it was him. Some instinct I couldn't name recognized his presence. I thought you might be here, he said quietly, stopping a respectful distance away. Soren told me about your hiding spots. You come here often when you're overwhelmed. You have me watched? I have you protected. There's a difference. He moved closer, and I finally looked up at him. He'd shed his formal jacket, rolled his sleeves, looked more human than I'd ever seen him. I'm sorry. For the ambush in my office. That wasn't fair to you. Nothing about this is fair. No, he agreed. It's not. But it's real, Elena. What I feel. What's happening between us. That's real. Whether you're Omega or not, Whether we're bonded or not, I know what I feel. And what's that? I needed to hear it. Needed him to say it plainly. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed. I feel like I've been sleepwalking through my life for 8 years, and you woke me up. I feel terrified and exhilarated at once. I feel like I would burn down kingdoms to keep you safe, and I don't fully understand why. I feel... He paused, then laughed roughly, completely out of control, which I hate. But I can't seem to stop. That's not love, I whispered. That's obsession. Maybe. He turned to face me. But tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me when I touch you. You don't feel that same electricity. Tell me you haven't been thinking about that night in my study, wondering what it meant. Tell me you don't see me in the hallways and feel something shift in your chest. Tell me any of that, and I'll walk away. I'll ensure your safety, your position, but I'll stop pushing. I couldn't tell him any of those things, because they'd all be lies. I'm scared, I admitted instead. Of this, of you, of what it means. I'm scared that I'll let myself believe, and it'll be taken away. Everything good in my life gets taken away. Not this time. He reached for my hand slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers laced with mine, and warmth spread up my arm. I'm not Malcolm. I'm not your old pack. I won't hurt you, Elena. I won't control you or diminish you or make you small. I'll spend every day proving that if I have to. You're a king. You can't promise that. Then I'll fail as a king, but I won't fail you. The conviction in his voice made my chest ache. I looked down at our joined hands, his large and scarred from years of training, mine small and rough from work. They shouldn't fit. By every measure of logic and reason, they shouldn't fit. But they did. Helena said I need emotional safety to shift properly, I said quietly. That my wolf is tied to feeling secure. I've never felt secure in my entire life. How am I supposed to access whatever this Omega thing is when I don't even know how to trust? You start small. His thumb traced circles on my palm. You take one risk, then another. You let people in slowly, and you remember that you're stronger than you think. You survived exile. You built a life from nothing. You stood up to Rains twice, even though you were terrified. That's not weakness, Elena. That's courage. Or stupidity. Courage and stupidity often look the same from the outside. He smiled slightly. The difference is intention. You weren't trying to be reckless. You were trying to maintain your dignity. That's strength. We sat in silence for a while, hands linked, and I felt something in my chest begin to unknot. Not completely, not magically, but enough to breathe a little easier. I want to try, I finally said, to see if this is real, if I can be what you think I am, but I need time and space and patience. You have all three. He squeezed my hand. As much as you need. And Lady Isadora? His expression darkened. Isadora was suggested as a suitable match by the council. I never agreed. Never courted her. Never gave her reason to believe she'd be queen. She positioned herself that way through politics and assumption. That ends now. She'll hate me. She'll hate that her plans didn't work. That's different. He stood, pulling me up with him. Come. Let me walk you back. And tomorrow, we start figuring out what happens next. Together, as we walked through the darkening gardens, my hand still in his, I felt the first fragile stirring of something I hadn't allowed myself in years. Hope. Maybe Marina was right. Maybe living, really living, was worth the risk of being destroyed. Maybe I was stronger than I believed. Maybe, just maybe, I could learn to trust this feeling between us, and maybe, in learning to trust him, I'd finally learn to trust myself. The next 3 weeks transformed my entire existence. Demon didn't push. He didn't demand. Instead, he courted me with a patience I hadn't known possible. Small gestures that built trust brick by careful brick, a book left in my quarters about Omega wolves and their history, an invitation to walk the gardens in early morning when the palace still slept. Meals shared in his private study where we talked about everything except the weight of what hung between us. He was teaching me to feel safe, and slowly, impossibly, it was working. The palace adjusted around us. Some staff whispered approvingly. Their king deserved happiness, they said, and I was kind to them. Others remained skeptical. The nobles were split. with Lady Isadora leading a quiet faction that viewed my presence as destabilizing, but Demon had made his position clear. I wasn't going anywhere. Helena remained at court, staying as a diplomatic guest while we navigated the complex politics of my situation. To my surprise, I found myself actually talking with her. Tentative conversations that slowly revealed the woman behind the beta who'd exiled me. She carried guilt like a physical weight, and her determination to make amends was genuine. "I can't undo what I did," she told me one afternoon in the library, where I'd started spending free time. "But I can give you information, help you understand what you are, what you could become, with proper guidance." "Tell me about Omega Wolves," I said. "Really tell me. Not just the myths." She settled into a chair across from me. "Omegas are balance. In a world of alphas competing for dominance and other wolves jockeying for position, Omegas exist outside the hierarchy. They're not weak. They're different. Their strength lies in emotional intelligence, in the ability to sense and soothe, to mediate conflicts before they escalate. Historically, packs with Omegas were more stable, more prosperous, but they also threatened traditional power structures, because they couldn't be controlled. Exactly. An alpha can command most wolves through dominance, but Omegas don't respond to that. They respond to genuine care, to emotional safety. You can't force loyalty from an Omega. You have to earn it. That terrified alphas like Malcolm. But Demon isn't like Malcolm. Helena smiled knowingly. No. He's the kind of alpha who could truly bond with an Omega. Strong enough to protect, secure enough to not need control. That's rare, Elena. What you two have is rare. We don't have anything yet, I protested. We're just getting to know each other. You're building foundation. That's smart. She leaned forward. But eventually, you'll need to try shifting again, properly. In a safe environment with people who understand what you are, your wolf is still locked inside you, Elena. She's been waiting 5 years to emerge fully. Don't you want to meet her? I did. Desperately. But the fear of failure, of that excruciating, incomplete transformation, still haunted me. What if I try and it doesn't work? What if Malcolm damaged me too badly? Then we try again. And again. Until it does work. Her expression softened. You're not broken, Elena. You never were. But you need to believe that before your wolf will trust you enough to emerge. That evening, I found Demon in the training courtyard, running through sword forms with Captain Soren. They moved with lethal grace, decades of practice evident in every strike and parry. I watched from the shadows until they finished, until Demon noticed me and dismissed Soren with a nod. Enjoying the show? He approached, slightly breathless, shirt clinging to his frame. Helena says I need to try shifting again. I said it quickly, before fear could stop me, that my wolf won't emerge until I feel safe enough. She thinks you could help, that being near you might make it possible. His expression grew serious. That's not a small thing you're asking. I know. If it doesn't work, it's not about it working or not. He moved closer, studying my face. It's about what happens if it does work. If you shift, if you fully access your Omega nature, the bond between us will strengthen. It might snap into place completely. Are you ready for that? Because there's no going back once it happens. I don't know if I'll ever feel ready, I admitted, but I'm tired of being half alive. Tired of hiding from what I am because I'm scared. You asked me to take risks. Well, this is me taking one. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. When? Tonight. In the gardens. Where I feel safest. I took a breath. Will you be there? Elena. He cupped my face with both hands, and the tenderness of it made my breath catch. I'll be wherever you need me. Always. Midnight found us deep in the palace gardens, in a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks that formed a natural barrier. Helena was there, along with Soren and Marina, people I trusted, who'd proven themselves. The moon hung full overhead, bathing everything in silver light. I stood at the clearing's center, wearing a simple dress that could be easily shed. My heart hammered so hard I thought everyone must hear it. Remember, Helena said gently, your wolf isn't separate from you. She's part of you. She's been protecting you, keeping herself hidden because she didn't feel safe. You need to show her it's okay now. That you're ready. How do I do that? Stop fighting. Demon moved to stand directly in front of me. Stop trying to control what happens. Just feel. Feel the moon, the earth, the people who care about you. Feel me. He took my hands, and warmth flooded through our connection. His eyes held mine, steady and sure. I'm right here, he said softly. You're safe. Your wolf is safe. Let her come forward, Elena. Let yourself be whole. I closed my eyes and stopped fighting. For 5 years, I'd kept rigid control over every instinct, every impulse, terrified of failing again. Now I released that control, let myself feel the moonlight on my skin, the earth beneath my feet, the steady presence of people who wanted me to succeed. Let myself feel Demon's hands in mine, his scent wrapping around me, his absolute certainty that I could do this. And deep inside, something uncurled. My wolf, quiet and patient for so long, stirred. Not with the violent urgency Malcolm had forced, but with gentle curiosity, like waking from a long sleep. Hello, I thought to her. I'm sorry I kept you locked away. I'm sorry I believed we were broken. We're not. We're exactly what we're supposed to be. She pressed against my consciousness, and this time I didn't flinch. Didn't try to control or direct. Just accepted. The shift began. It didn't hurt. That was the first shock. After years of excruciating partial transformations, this felt natural. Right. My bones restructured smoothly, my muscles reformed, fur sprouted silver pale across my skin. I felt myself changing and changing and changing, and instead of terror, I felt joy. When it completed, I stood on 4 legs for the first time in my life. I was smaller than most wolves, delicate-boned, pale as moonlight. But I was whole, complete. My senses exploded with new information. Scents layered and complex, sounds sharp and clear, the emotional states of everyone present washing over me like colors. Helena's pride, Soren's approval, Marina's delight. And Demon. His emotions hit me like a wave, fierce protectiveness, deep pride. Once so intense it made my wolf whine. And underneath it all, something that felt like recognition. Like coming home. He'd shifted too. His wolf was massive, dark as midnight, powerful beyond measure, an alpha in every line. He approached slowly, giving me space. And when we stood nose to nose, I felt it. The bond. It snapped into place with an almost audible click, and suddenly I could feel him, actually feel him, his emotions, his thoughts. The shape of his soul pressed against mine. It should have been invasive. Instead, it felt like I'd been incomplete my whole life, and finally found the missing piece. Elena. His voice in my mind was warm, wondering. You're beautiful. I'm small. You're perfect. He circled me slowly, reverently, and mine. Say you're mine. The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, I felt my own rise to meet it. Yours. I agreed. If you're mine. Always. He pressed against my side, and the physical contact sent sparks through the bond. My Omega. My mate. My Elena. We ran. Through the gardens, through the forest beyond, under the full moon with the others following at a respectful distance. I'd never known freedom like this. 4 legs eating up ground, wind in my fur, Demon beside me matching my pace perfectly. We were connected in ways I couldn't articulate, moving as one unit. When we finally stopped at a cliff overlooking the kingdom, I tilted my head back and howled. Not in pain or fear, but in pure joy, in triumph. Demon's howl joined mine, deeper and richer, and the sound echoed across the valley. I was whole. I was found. I was home. We shifted back as dawn broke, and I found myself wrapped in Demon's arms, both of us naked and uncaring beneath a blanket someone had thoughtfully provided. He held me like I was precious, like I might disappear if he loosened his grip. How do you feel? He asked against my hair. Different. Better. Like I've been holding my breath for 5 years and can finally exhale. I looked up at him. I can feel you. Inside my head. My heart. Is it always like this? For us, yes. The bond is permanent, Elena. You're stuck with me now. Good. I pressed closer. I don't want to imagine being without this. Without you. Is that crazy? We've only known each other 3 weeks. Time is relative. What we have is—" He paused, searching for words. "It's once in a lifetime, maybe once in 100 lifetimes. I'm not wasting it by being cautious. So what happens now?" His expression grew serious. "Now we deal with reality. The council will resist. Isidora's faction will push back. There will be those who say an Omega can't be queen, that you're too common, too young, too inexperienced. We'll face opposition at every turn." "That sounds exhausting." "It will be." He kissed my forehead. "But we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore, Elena. You have me. You have people who believe in you, and whether the council likes it or not, you're my mate, my chosen queen. They can accept it or learn to live with disappointment." "Very diplomatic," I said dryly. "I'm done being diplomatic about things that matter." His arms tightened. "I've spent 8 years putting the kingdom first, sacrificing personal desires for political necessity. Not anymore. Not with this. Not with you." The formal announcement came 2 weeks later. Demon called a full court assembly. Every noble family, every visiting alpha, every person of influence in the kingdom. I stood beside him on the dais, wearing a gown Helena had commissioned, pale blue that brought out my eyes. My hair was arranged elegantly, but loose, a compromise between formality and authenticity. I was terrified, but Demon's presence beside me, the bond humming between us, gave me strength. "I've called you here," Demon began, his voice carrying through the massive hall, "to announce my decision regarding the kingdom's future. For 8 years I've ruled alone. That ends today." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I present to you Elena Ashford, formerly of Clearwater Pack, my mate, my Omega. And your future queen!" The hall exploded. Some cheered, mostly common folk and younger nobles who saw romance in the story. Others protested loudly, Lady Isidora's faction vocally opposing. The noise built until Demon's alpha command cut through it like a blade. Silence. Everyone stopped. The power in that single word was absolute. "I did not ask for your approval." He continued coldly. "I'm informing you of reality. Elena is my mate. The bond is complete and unbreakable. Those who cannot accept this are welcome to leave my court. Those who remain will show proper respect or face consequences. Am I clear?" The nobles who'd protested looked mutinous, but cowed. Lady Isidora's expression was carved ice. "Your Majesty," Lord Garrett stepped forward carefully. "No one questions your right to choose, but there are practical concerns. The girl has no training, no diplomatic experience, no—" "Then she'll learn," Demon interrupted, "with the same tutors who prepared me. Elena is intelligent, compassionate, and stronger than anyone in this room gives her credit for. She'll make an excellent queen. And more importantly," his tone brooked no argument, "she's mine. That is the only credential that matters." He turned to me then, in front of everyone, and took my hand. The gesture was public, deliberate, claiming, "Do you accept?" he asked softly. "Knowing what it means, the responsibility, the scrutiny, the constant pressure?" I looked out at the crowd, hundreds of faces, some hostile, some curious, some genuinely happy. This would be my life now. No more hiding, no more invisibility. But I'd have Demon beside me. I'd have my wolf. I'd have purpose. "I accept," I said clearly. "And I'll do everything in my power to be worthy of this kingdom's trust." The cheers that followed were mixed with continued protests, but Demon pulled me close and kissed me in front of everyone. It was possessive and tender at once, a declaration that needed no words. When we broke apart, he whispered against my lips, "Welcome home, my queen." 6 months later, I stood in the same gardens where I'd first shifted, watching the moon rise. So much had changed. I'd been formally crowned in a ceremony that drew alphas from across the known world. I'd begun diplomatic training, learning to navigate politics with Helena's guidance. I'd even reconciled fully with my old pack, though I chose to remain with Demon. Marina had been promoted to head of household staff. My first official act as queen, Captain Soren had become not just security, but a trusted friend. Even Lord Garrett had grudgingly admitted I was less incompetent than anticipated. Lady Isidora had left court entirely, taking her faction with her. Some said she'd gone north, to territories that still resisted the idea of an Omega Queen. I wished her peace, but I didn't miss her presence. "You're thinking too hard." Demon's arms came around me from behind, and I leaned into his warmth. "I can feel it through the bond." "What's troubling you?" "Nothing's troubling me. I'm just reflecting. A year ago, I was a maid terrified of being noticed. Now I'm queen. It's surreal." "Regrets?" "Not a single one." I turned in his arms. "Though I never thanked you properly for seeing me, for refusing to let me hide, for being patient while I learned to trust. You don't need to thank me for recognizing what was always there." He kissed me softly. "You were never invisible, Elena. You were just surrounded by people too blind to see. I'm grateful I wasn't one of them." "What happens now?" I asked. "We faced the council, won over the court, established our bond. What's the next challenge?" He smiled. "Now we live. We rule. We build something lasting together. We face whatever comes, as partners, as mates, as equals." His hand moved to rest over my heart. "And we remember that the strongest kingdoms aren't built on power alone. They're built on compassion, on seeing the invisible ones and giving them voice, on proving that strength comes in many forms." "That sounds like a lot of work." "It will be." He pressed his forehead to mine. "But we have time. We have each other. And we have something most rulers never find: real love. Everything else, we'll figure out." Below us, the palace glowed with lights. Our kingdom, our home, our future. I'd come here 5 years ago broken and alone, believing I was defective. Now I stood as queen, whole, bonded, purposeful. The journey had been painful, terrifying, impossible. But I'd survived it. More than survived. I'd transformed. And as Demon pulled me close, as our bond hummed with contentment and promise, I knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. We had a lifetime ahead of us, challenges to face, victories to win, changes to make. But we'd face them together, Alpha and Omega, king and queen, two souls who'd found each other against all odds, and refused to let fear or tradition or impossibility keep them apart. Marina had been right. Living, really living, was worth the risk. And I intended to live fully, fearlessly, for the rest of my days. The moon rose higher, bathing us in silver light, and somewhere deep in the forest, wolves howled in celebration. Not in pain or loneliness, but in joy. Just like me.